Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. I have poetically titled it Timeless Beyond Vendetta. What the vendetta I'm talking about is not just the basic way where it's like a feud or like a we for vendetta kind of image. Timeless beyond vendetta means unconditional being. Means that beyond a reason to resist anything in the realm, one is timeless. And so what's fascinating is if we say time is an idea, it's a subject, time is timeless. The concept of time is not in time. It's timeless. So that's the poetry of the Timeless Beyond Vendetta. Now to the main event. So when I've written in the subtitle how to access collective minds, please hear me as a fool. That means there's a reason I've put Mr.Within to not cause confusion. But I feel strangely right now in this current moment, I may be one of the let's say few speakers on the topic of how to access a collective mind. And if one doesn't have the right picture, I'm telling you, this world is filled with puzzles. It's like an endless Rubik's cubes, but it depends on the concept and the context, and when they match, a story animates. When they, in some sense, fit together, then meaning arises. You know, you can't have meaning if there's just the concept, and you can't have meaning if you have the context, but there isn't the concept. So, how to access collective minds? Well, you gotta dial this number. Oh man. As one human being, I'll share the way I have found access. Pretty much, I looked at this world. At first, I thought I was just an object, and I thought what I see is reality. Then I began to notice that there is another layer. It's as if there's a film playing over a film. I noticed that, and I called that the inner realms. It is where subjects move. So in front of our eyes, we move as an object. Behind our eyes, we move as a subject. Now, in wondering how am I being an object right now, and then how am I being an object right now that is being moved by a subject right now. So in some sense, the activity of an object, we ascribe it to the subjective mover, the identity. There's a mind there in the body. And then the inactivity of the body, we cannot ascribe a mind. You know, that means if nothing happens, we can't say who did nothing. You know, we can only when something happens, we say who did that, you know. So there is no who in the inactivity of an object. This means a subject becomes relevant only when an object can move to itself and with the establishing of more than one memory. That means you need two reference points to start duality. So, I changed the narrative. For 22 years I had lived in language. And language, I had allowed language to occupy the possibilities of my intelligence. Now, when I woke up from it, I had this inner realm vision. It doesn't matter what's going on in my outer realms in front of my eyes, in my inner realm, I can fathom anything. I could be like sitting on a bus and then thinking about like being on a space station in the inner realms. The inner realms is an ability to bring the world to us. The body is an ability to move in the world. So that means when the person's sitting on the bus and they're visualizing a space station, their eyes are closed and they're thinking, how would it be like, you know, them grabbing onto like a metal thing in the space station. So our mind gives a multi-locational ability to the moment. That means my body right now in this room, this is a location. And then when this room is in my mind, like this cannot be ignored. Right now, anybody listening, anybody looking, it's like if you ask yourself, where is the world to you? It is you. The world that your mind and the world are simultaneously being. In my inner realms, I got an aerial view as if I'm a couple hundred meters in the sky. I was looking at Earth, and then like a film being fast forwarded, in my inner realms, I fathomed evolution. And imagine 4.5 billion years seeing that in like 10 seconds. What you would notice is that it's as if something is pulling something out from the dirt. It's as if light is pulling creaturehood from the earth. It's pulling it out, you know? So, the inanimate harbors the potential of the animate. The animate harbors the potential of the inanimate. And the only way we can be beyond any sort of game of resistance or feud or war is only we become timeless. You cannot find peace in time because time cuts you into pieces, makes you into pieces. That means one can think of their whole life as one continuous scroll, or they can think of it as if each is a single page. Every day they wake up, the way they live, they just imagine you wrote a page, right? It was like a page. So we can create chapters to living, or it can be one endless book that from the beginning has not ended. In other talks, I termed it a symbiosis between what is individually conscious and what is collectively unconscious. The collective unconscious is our greatest teacher. That means who knew? The greatest teacher in this world of ours is not any teacher. There has never been a great teacher. There has been a great world that people have pointed at. You know? So what I mean is the collective unconscious, that is the great thing. That means for me, it's as if it's like more than I have the desire of sharing something and then people comprehending it. I have the desire of people just being pushed. That means what I'm trying to do is actually just put a mirror close enough to the face of the listener that the listener says, where am I? And then they recalibrate to their realm. So that means collective minds, they're inevitable. We will come to them. You know, maybe now it's easy to push it aside. Maybe now it is too easy to say that reality is not a simulation. But if cyberspace allows us to connect all our brains to one program, as if it's like right now we have one, let's say, natural mind, and we have one natural body. In the future, what's going to happen is we're going to have one natural mind, we're going to have one natural body, then there's going to be android bodyhood, which I feel then there's going to be multiple unnatural bodies. So we're going to have one natural mind, multiple unnatural bodies. Then it's going to go to a point where after the person has gotten bored of biological existence, gotten bored of technological embodied existence, eventually where else does conscious energy have to go? So it has to go only into the mind. That means this was the difference between the New Age community and I would say mysticism back in the day. In the New Age community, they are trying to look at what they are fathoming as the higher, communicating with the lower. So in the New Age community, it's as if talking to, it's the story, it's the exoteric dimension. So New Age community is exoteric, I would say, but the esoteric community has to do not with, and when I say esoteric, I don't mean these like Halloween costume games of this modern era. You know, because that's being rude to the unknown. I mean an evolutionary return to nature and a remembrance of a natural collectivity before the artificial one arrives. And if you can do this, you have welcomed yourself to a universal body. That means there is moments that I speak where yes, I feel I am just this body, but then there's moments I speak where I am the moment before I am this body, and the laughter echoes beyond time. So we have to work with collectivity, and now ways of accessing the collective mind. Let us say an exoteric and esoteric, and these two words, how would I say them? So my background is from Iran. In Iranian mysticism, there is these two terms, Zahir and Batin. Zahir means the appearance, you know, the theatrical outer realms, right? And Batin means the esoteric, that which has to do with the essence of what is being here, not the appearance of what is being here. You know, this is really what spirituality was about, the unspeakable. Because if we could speak about it, it becomes science. It becomes science and philosophy the moment you can speak about it. It is only that which cannot be spoken about, which was held in a high regard, as if before we had time, where were we? Guess the unknown knows. You know? So the esoteric and the exoteric, they oscillate. You know, they move. There's phases in the outer realms where I would say human beings it's more important for them to go within. You can say there's phases in history where they have to go without. It's like our earliest ancestors building civilization for the first time, building villages. We can't go to them and be like, don't have egos, guys, don't build villages. You know, just sit down and meditate. They'd be like, yo, man, we don't even know what's going to happen. And that's the thing. Progress shouldn't be renunciated. Renounced shouldn't be renounced. Excuse me. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is, just like an individual conscious moment is present in a collective unconscious moment, I would say this symbiosis, this habitation. That, what I mean by this is like, I don't know, there's like types of fish that they go around bigger fish and they live off each other. The bigger fish eats fish, whatever falls from the bigger fish, the smaller fish beside it eat it, right? So that's a sort of symbiosis. That's two ecosystems being able to function. You know, it's like this. It's like we are a coin, and we have been fighting over which side of the coin is the whole coin. And when the species realizes it is okay to allow types of multidimensionality beyond dualism, we cannot be afraid of how vast our minds can go, you know, how vast they can be. Because think about it, we're technically in an all-you-can-eat buffet of unknown phenomenological activity that can be known. Everybody can literally every day discoveries should be happening. But why are they not? Because the educational system has put itself in a cryo chamber of wanting the past to be victorious in a future that never had that past. That never went a totally different direction. You know, I have had, do you know what it is? It's like, I can tell you that the educational system is selfish. It takes more than it gives. And the biggest thing it takes is not the money. The biggest thing the educational system takes is the energy and exuberance and the explorative mindset of that age. Do you know? That means it's like, I am telling you, this world has never had an educational system, proper one. It has had businesses. And there has been schools, but like back in the day, they were way more humble. It wasn't economically obsessive, but just people were surviving, and they're like, okay, now that we've survived in hunter-gatherer societies and we've gathered and hunted, you know, what do we do? Okay, so now it was communication was the next phase. And so for the first time, it wasn't that we became a creature that's just moving around in the world. We began becoming creatures to each other, and we began moving to each other in accordance to our voice and speech, rather than in accordance to our physical movement. Right? That means a person, it's like as if everything was sign language before language, you know. And so the world is made of signs, symbols. For me, this was such a shock. I laughed because I'll tell you, I thought it was a science, a religion, and I will dare say it, spirituality. These three, and the way they have their stories had evolved, they had distracted me from the imposter in the room. And the imposter in the room is none of these. That means these three, they're just their clothing. Somebody who says they're spiritual, that's a type of clothing. Do you know? Because the inner realms, it is unspeakable, even if it is by that nature. That means if you are something beyond shape, to say that you are a shape of being nothing, you know, it's like, you know what it is? It's like saying I'm a spirit. It's like saying I am the shape of nothing. You know? Because it moves beyond. It moves beyond how we have defined form. We are life forms. The life is like multidimensional. The form is in one dimension, right? And that's why we can have so many different views on ourselves in one lifetime. We can live we are in our inner realms living multiple lives, you know? What is a heartbreak? It is an inner death. Or an inner end. And in the inner realms, it is so easy for things to begin and end. Like, we're so used to it. That means the mind, it has been, believe it or not, changing, and change is death. That means if we call it death and we're like, oh no, death, and but of course with the grace of nature, I will tell you, it is change. That means it's not like anything is ever dying. It's like energy is just moving on. As if these elements right now, the periodic table is enlisted to my service. Right now, when I move my hand in there, it's like, hey guys, I just levitated the periodic table. You know, why is it the world clapping for me when I raise my hand? You know, technically that's levitation, no? Even like, it's like if a person wants to levitate an object, a person who jumps in the air for 1 second, levitated as an object. That means technically when a person jumps, they levitate, but not long enough. So, to treat this collectivity, best thing I can say is that we are in a universe that we have for a long time considered not alive. We have considered us to be more alive than our world, so it has become logical to care for ourselves more than the world, not realizing that the self and the world are simultaneous. That means right now, as my speech, as this talk is happening, simultaneously the whole universe is happening. And how can the listeners tell if the universe is talking to them or someone with the online alias Mr.Within is talking to them? So you see, our mind is a sieve. We can access collectivity in the outer realms through advanced forms of communication and advanced technologies. That means if we see communication as a technology, and when someone, for example, communicates in an inefficient way, or someone communicates in an efficient way, it's as if they use that technology in an efficient or inefficient way. So in the outer realms, technology and communication, these are the two main things that have to be focused on in regards to accessing outer realm collectivity. That means our visions and dreams. It's like when Martin Luther King gave a speech, it was as if so many human beings in that moment, their universes lit up because they saw the same vision, you know. That's literally collective mindhood right there. Because that's what we can do. We can be an individual, or we can be a collective, or we can be nothing. That means it's either nothing or two types of something, a collective something and an individual something. And one way I can say, I'm trying to kind of share different methods here. But you can access the unknown, anything. Let's say right now we're in an illusion and there is a truth and we don't know how to get to the truth. Or some sort of deeper reality. Let me not even say truth. Let's say another dimension of the realm. We would say an individual being experiences emptiness And if a collective being is defined as a collection of individuals, and if individuals experience emptiness, there is also a collective emptiness. So through emptiness, one can attain a state, they can find themselves in a moment, in a type of moment, where because self has not been imposed yet, so you can say you are in the non-Advaita is trying to get people to a state where you are the potential of the individual and potential of the collective, but you are the reality of the potential. That means we're like, okay, how's the potential here? That means somebody said kinetic energy, yay. It's like, how's the potential energy here, right? How are they different even? Right? Because if energy cannot be created or destroyed, it changes from form to form, then does it really change? Does something that cannot be created or destroyed change? That means there is an immortal in the world room, but it is energy. And so energy plus attention, that is literally the soul. And attention that transmigrates from different formats of the realm. So emptiness is a route to access a collective mind. Individualism is a route to access a collective mind. Duality can lead to a collective mind, but it can only have two exits to it. That means if it's duality alone, if there's dual, okay, so let's say there's 4 dimensions in this world, and this is in accordance to something a model I've come up with. Zero, but let's say there's a 0 dimension, and I'll explain these. There's a 0 dimension, a 1 dimension, a 2 dimension, and an infinite dimension. And the reason I don't say 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, all those dimensions, because after you have duality, you can have infinity. Literally like 2 times 2 times 2 times. Like it can go. So duality is pre-infinity and post-unity. So in the 0 dimension, collectivity is nothing. That means really in the times where I feel like nothing in this world, and I've had moments where it's hilarious. Sometimes it's happened in just so quick that I've just watched it like a film, where my by the outer realms, my self-worth was literally as if, imagine you're holding a plate of food and somebody comes and grabs that plate and like breaks it on the ground, you know. And so the person's like there looking at their shattered psyche. Oh man. But nothingness can be used. That means if you're universally street smart, you will use your suffering, you will recycle your weaknesses and inefficiencies. In my life, the preferencelessness and a noticing of emptiness was key. Once you notice space, you go to the 1 dimension, you notice there can be a thing in space. So imagine first imagine awareness is just a surveillance, it's just a watcher, it's like a viewer, unknown viewer. And this unknown viewer first becomes space. Then this unknown viewer becomes an individual in the space, an individual point. So I want you to imagine like just empty space, then a dot, then a tiny sphere emerging, you know. So that sphere is singular. Okay, that's where individualism comes. You cannot know, a person cannot be individual if they don't notice the relationship of matter and space. That means I don't know how a person can be a person if they don't have the space to be a person. Similar to if somebody is not allowed to talk, they will never say what they want to say. So it's as if they did not have the space for their human dimension to express. So space is key. And space, it's the sensitivity to space. That means how many public servants of the realm are there that are caring for the body of the person, but when will the species reach a point where we care how the mind is keeping the body to itself? And the one thing we gotta do is train. So I would encourage that when it comes to speech and language, it's okay for there to be violent speech. Let me tell you why. It's so much better than having actual violence, right? But even better than violent speech is speech that is unconditional. Because a person gets pushed to violence, like it's cornered animal psychology. So you can say a lot of violence happens because human beings are hit by the world first before they hit it back. Because if it is really truly a tabula rasa kind of style, we have to assume that as human beings are being born every day, they are literally like empty files, that they're like a camera, that it's what they see that becomes their psychology, right? So it's as if two dimensions of first, what content is there for human beings to engage with to feel human, right? So it's like one dimension is how society is holding itself, and then another dimension is how that person chooses to hold how they see society. So that means more and more, all those things that we're like, yeah, you know, the government should change and they should do it for us, we should do it, because the government is something that arose from people. Do you see? So that means, for me, it's very baffling. I mean, I'm not a political scientist, but I will tell you, you don't need to be a political scientist to see how complex it is, how human psychology has infused with arbitrary mechanisms for the maintenance of value systems that are required for our species to continue. There is a force of like an arbitrary enforcement of reality, right? And that arbitrary enforcement of reality is important, right? But at the same time, it can limit you. So what it is it's as if like somebody is saying the color blue is the only truth, and it's as if somebody who sees the color red comes to the color blue and says, no, the color blue is not the only truth, the color red is the only truth, right? And the person who says invalidates the color blue but is saying the color red is the only truth is literally making the same mistake as the color blue. Until the color white comes and says, what are y'all doing here? You know, and so it's like a recognition that color doesn't have to have a definition, it just is. And so many things in this world is. Can you imagine if the person really wanted the outer realms to fit the inner realms? Do you know how many things have to change? That means just imagine if God was making everybody's prayers come true, right? And imagine in a neighborhood, the neighbors didn't like each other. You know, and then suddenly the neighborhood vanished, and they're like, why did the neighborhood vanish? It's like God answered their prayers, but all their prayers were to get rid of one another, right? So you see, that's the chaos. That's the chaos of it's literally us. I'm telling you, so many people, they don't realize, like Leo Tolstoy made this point, that the Russian Tsar and the Japanese Emperor during the Russo-Japanese War, they each were telling their own men, God's with us and the universe is with us and we'll win. You know, we're doing the right thing, right? But they were each in their own worlds fighting. And so that's the strange thing of this planet, that it's one planet but it's in pieces, because we are. There's many ways to realize that self and world are simultaneous. There's outer realm methods. The shamans had outer realm methods. The plants were their guides, the mirrors to their spirits. And you can say, in the inner realm, in the yogic, in the mystical, this is something where the West, I can't believe it hasn't come to the West. Like Alan Watts tried, but I think that its magnitude still has room to be shared. Because when you become a collective mind, and I'll be honest here, you are not human. And being human is like a certain balance on a surfboard, right? And if you are imbalanced, you go back into that collectivity. If you are very balanced, you consciously go back into that collectivity. So you, in some sense, take this life rather than, like, again, the difference between the mystical and the new age. The new age, it's like a mind is coming into a body. In the mystical, the body is going into the real mind, into the ultimate mind, right? And so what it means is the journey back home of a body into its mind is literally a recognition that its body is the movement of the mind. And this, for many, is liberation. When you realize all the things that have bothered you in this life has been just the movement of your mind. The person's like, why am I suffering? It's like, your mind's moving too much, man. That's why. And I am telling you, the more a person is selfless, the faster they can move in their inner realms. The more you are story bound, the story is the God of you, is the kingdom of your eyes. Like, what else can you do? If I say the world is a bad place, that it's like, okay, I've said that the world is a bad place first. And people are going to be like, no, it's a good place. It's a really good place. And I'll be like, no, because I said it's a bad place first, it can't be a good place anymore, right? And so it feels as if just because we're saying it's material first, we have completely pushed aside all exploration and search for the immaterial. Do you know? That means it was like the biggest tragedy, I would say, of the atheistic movement was that it just laughed at the theist. It did not start a new brand of research. Because really, it's like that. Let me tell you what it is. It's like the scientist shouts, it's completely material, ha 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 ha, right? And then the religious person starts crying and the spiritual person is silent in the corner, just watching as the presence of nature. As a bird on the branch, as nature herself. Now the psychologist is like, the sociologist is like, yeah, you know, it is only material, right? Then the psychologist is like, and the sociologist looks at the psychologist and it's like, right, it's only material, right? And the psychologist is like, yeah, it is material, yeah. And then the psychologist looks at the philosopher and it's like, I don't know, they're asking me if it's material, and the philosopher says, say the truth, and the psychologist is like, I can't, you say it, and the philosopher's like, okay. And the philosopher's like, no, if we have to consider materiality, we have to have the codependency of the other side. You cannot know your material unless you're immaterial. That means the concept cannot be treated as firmly real if it requires a codependence to another side. It's like, how can we know we are temporary? How can we know we are eternal? Right? And the way we explain how we may know we're eternal is that after death, the sight continues somehow. So if the sight continues, the rooms are obvious. When people forget we're 8 billion creatures on a rock making mouth noises, that we are linking to inner realm imagery, to subjects, I am telling you, what freedom? What act of freedom? You know, even if we had freedom, it's like the question comes, do people know what to do with it? Right? It's like, how many times have we seen like a view of like a person, there was this, I don't know if it was an article or it was a video I saw. There was like somebody was saying how so many people who had won the lottery had ruined their lives actually, because it gave them a freedom they could not carry. They didn't feel they deserved that freedom. Do you believe it? That means you can give someone freedom, but they may feel in their inner realms they don't deserve it and they may not be free. You could have someone be a refugee of a country, and this refugee come to another country and still live as if they're in the same country, right? And it's not that it's right or wrong, but I'm saying it's as if then it's the multilocality of the mind. It's as if, what are we doing here? Not changing to ourselves, but the world is changing every day. It's like, what are we doing? Painting, blindfolding ourselves with ideology and language. There's so much of this realm that is experiential, and it has nothing to do with a percentage on a piece of paper. We have moved into the era of advanced communication, and I don't know how to say it, but your mind deserves to walk in ways that your body could never fathom. Do you see that? It's as if what other stage do we have? You know, sometimes I ask myself, okay, if I wanted to give these talks, where could I give them? And I'm like, I couldn't have given these talks before I was born. I can't give it if there's something in the afterlife, whether it's voidhood or something else, you know? And I realize, yeah, this is the stage. This is the boldness of eyes that recognize their own mortality. They begin living for the world, you know. And it's honestly a pretty cool feeling, I'm telling you. Like, because we haven't seen it, right? It's like we don't have that samurai level of honor for the human species yet, you know. To access collective mindhood, actually, the less you do, the more collectively you're being. The more you do, the more there is a reason for the individual character in the story to be the primary vision, the vision in the driver's seat. That means, like, even though I give these talks, there is an ultimate, I would say, pattern underneath everything I'm saying that I'm following. And that is to see if it's possible, or what would an advanced civilization really look like? Like, what is the most advanced state of the human being? We don't know this. Mainly because our knowledge is limited. Our knowledge is self-fabricated. The self is self-fabricated. Like everything, every word that we're treating as like right now, I'm looking at this table, and before this was called a table, there was no table. That means there wasn't the name. So names have become as serious as objects for us, especially if language moves and it makes the human being emotional. In the chat section, Kushbu says, what is an ego death? It's realizing you were never what you thought you were. That's it. Alan Watts has the best explanation of the ego. He says it in a way that you get rid of all the connotation built up with it as being like an evil thing, you know. You know, some people in the New Age community, they feel the evil is like evil. You know, they're fighting egos. But I'll tell you, it's just attention. There's no greater feeling than seeing a possibility in the inner realms actualize in the outer realms. And every person, this is where I would say these are the true scholars. Anyone listening, and I don't know how long, how many, I don't know how long will time carry my voice. But I will say the true scholars among the human species are those who recognize this simple sentence. You are stranded on a rock in the middle of nowhere. That sentence is where the intellect begins raging in its mortal life to actually the mind's life activates when you wonder why it's all being here. Alan Watts said the ego is just an attention to self. That means right now, if I say the world is the world is on fire because sunlight is hitting it. Okay, in the chat section, Home Mycology says, you forget what you took and spent about 6 hours this realm's time, convinces you messed up and can't come back. The beauty of it is you meet an entity, they will help. Imagine a guardian angel. Oh, man. If you realize your mind is non-local, how many unnecessary simulations would you walk past in an instant? Language worship is out of control, guys. It's unacceptable. How has this been, accepted? And ego death means you got to see what tomorrow is like. You got to see a self that wasn't the same. Really, that's the joy of life. Like, why are people alive, right? We're not alive to be statues. We're alive to see different dimensions as much as dimensions. Sadhguru had a very nice way of explaining it. He said, a life, what did he say? He said something in the lines of, like, to live a fulfilled life, you got to experience all of life's dimensions fully, right? He meant a fulfillment of a dimensional, of an exploration of all the dimensions of the realm, right? And so I am telling you, beyond language, the nature of your attention becomes the game of life, not what's in your attention. Whether it is the outer realm psychedelic approach, whether it's the inner realm yogic approach, whether it is the ritualistic approach. Like, there's so many different ways human beings are trying to behave so that their state of mind changes, not recognizing that the true nature of being is being. And so it's as if all those spirit guides and all the psychedelic experiences or any sort of altered state of mind experiences, all of them are there just to eventually tell you, hey, who do you think's running the show? For me, the presence of the human being is an unknown. It's an unknown variable. That means endless words, endless language can come to conquer me. continue. Okay. By the way, I will be on Discord after this. For those interested, Q&A can take place there if people have serious questions. If people have no questions, then the boy is spoken first. The poet Rumi says, I died as a mineral, and he from 700 years ago. He says, I died as a mineral, and I became a plant. I died as a plant, and I rose to animal. I died as an animal, and I was man. Why should I fear death? When was I less by dying? I shall die once more, to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on, to that which no mind has ever conceived. A journey towards the inconceivable. And how do we know evolution is not taking us towards the inconceivable? You know, we feel like, oh my God, the species reach a certain threshold and then they can't get further, and civilizations rise, and then they fall. Rise, fall. Rise, fall. Right? We have this view currently, but I will tell you, it's not that they rise, fall. They rise materialistically, then they rise immaterialistically. The body is always in just one room. There is so many states of mind where truth is more attributed to the stillness than to the movement. And there's states of mind where truth is kept in movement. Like to be a human being, for example, in human society takes effort, right? It's like a certain wavelength you're holding, or a certain range of attention. You're holding your attention in a certain way, you know? It's like when one enters society, the contextual arbitrary force repersonalizes the person in each moment. That means really our psychologies are not just dependent who we are alone, they're dependent in the rooms we find ourselves. Now, is the species ready to, instead of nullifying the mind and saying free, so certain neurologists are saying free will is an illusion, you know? We must find a strategy that treats every idea known on this planet as just tools on this island we're stranded in. This galactic island. There's been moments where I will tell you I have felt my eyes have no ideological ownership. And I can't even say that it's psychology, because you see, memory, to me, people have different relationships with their memory. Like, I've read enough biographies of important people in history, conquerors specifically, and their imagination, their inner realms were super complex. That means the thing that was making them different than the people in their time wasn't how they were behaving in their outer environment. It was how they were, their inner environment was behaving, and how they were in it. right? So when you see a happy person and a sad person both in the same room, or somebody says a joke and one person laughs and one person doesn't, that is a suggestion that it's as if like to one person's inner realm they could see the angle, right? But in another person's inner realms they could not, right? And so it's just showing how much our inner realms are dictating the outer realms. But if we want to build an advanced outer realm, we have to put our inner realms to the side and for the first time try to step out of the cultural program and any sort of identity, right? To for the first time see what kind of identity, what kind of a universal activity we want to engage. That means it's the question is first, how does a human being live in a universe? Okay, then the question goes, for example, how does a species live in the universe? Right? Then it becomes it keeps going further. Then how does let's say, planet live in the universe? You know, or how does and living is continuity to us. I mean, who are we kidding? Living is continuity. That means you get to the next day, you've lived longer. But it is also the type of walk you have, right? It's not like, this took me a while to learn, and still every day I'm learning, is that sometimes when a person speeds through something, they can also miss a lot. It's so easy to break systems, ideologically, I mean. That means a person can look at anything. It's the same, it's as easy as looking at any object and having the ability as a human being to unscrew the screws and take out the object and see what's inside and what's it made of. You know, it's as if everything can be dismissed easily. It's just add the selfishness percentage increases, dismissal percentage increases. We have more reasons to listen to our outer realm than to care for our inner realm than for our outer realm. If we could somehow make caring for our outer realm being the most advanced thing we could do in our inner realm, which it is, that means if this realm is, if I term it that we're all pilots of consciousness and we are in a plane of existence. As if. It's as if when for example, let's say there's turbulence in the plane of existence and the masks fall from the top of the airplane, you know, from like where these chairs are, right? So the person is advised to put the mask on themselves, then put the mask on others. Now the issue is, everybody spends their whole life putting the mask on themselves, but then at the end, when they have put the mask on themselves, they want to put the mask on others, and so the system never updates. So we need a system that puts on the mask, and no pun intended, especially at this current historic period. Sveta says in the chat section, is there a state of being stuck in between here and there, which feels like being suspended and not here, not there? There is Antarloka. So Sveta, I could say you could be on a bridge. A bridge is like being suspended and not here or there. You're on a bridge. So you could be in a bridge between states of mind, yeah. Bridge dimensions. But those are linguistically created. That means you're inside a story. That's what it means, a story. That means if you're in a state of being between here and there, you're in a story. That means it's neither real or unreal. That means it has image. Like even though, let's say we saw the Hulk on screen in cinema, you know, like the concept is real, but in actuality it's not real. But why is the concept real? That means if Hulk actually stepped outside, we'd be like, is this some miracle? It's like that suddenly the concept now is existing in the context. Stillness and silence is a way. This is the mystic's path. That means, I'm not kidding, any human being, just sit still and silent and watch yourself like a film. Watch your whole moment be like a film. And you will be surprised that the point is not to not have thoughts. The point is to notice you are watching your thoughts. The watcher is not the thought. So silence and stillness, that is one portal to collective mindhood or timeless witnessing. That's another way we can say. Another way, this is where I am kind of being a maverick, and a lot of yogis are probably scolding me in their inner realms. And let me tell you why. Because I have I am making a very unique proposition that if through complete stillness and silence we can notice the watcher, we can in any moment notice the watcher, therefore allowing in the most advanced state of communication seeing the watcher. That means if we truly understand, you can notice the watcher any moment. You can notice the watcher right now. You know, and when you notice the watchers you notice the watcher and you're honest. I will tell you all, this may sound strange, but all mental illness is a dishonesty with a self no one else can see other than you. Because the world is ourself. Ourselves have come from the world. So that means I am saying in advanced communication we can still notice the watcher, you know, the watcher, the unknown witness, the unknown inner witness, let's say. Or I'll just say unknown witness, because if I say inner, that's something, you know, something about it. So this unknown witness can be accessed through advanced communication. Right now in the outer realms, we need to advance communication. Pretty much, again, I'm kind of retunneling here, but the user of technology needs to evolve, and the user and the technology needs to evolve. Now the rate of evolution of technology has, by some futurists, been said to be exponential, in the sense that it's ridiculously accelerating. So technology is growing in really quickly. right? So that means we can no longer just stay with the evolution of our inner realms. We need a revolution, which means an instant shift. So it's for the first time an inner revolution to look at the world again. To look at the world again. But a global one. So for me, we can build an advanced outer realm, and we can simultaneously notice our nature. In the same way they said, there was the Sufi saying. They said so in the Sufi tradition, the concept of enlightenment was known as the pearl. And so back in the day, it's like if you were talking to someone in town, they'd be like, "Yo, that person has the pearl, go talk to him," or something, you know. Now there was this saying that they said the person who truly had held the pearl was the person not in the mountains meditating alone, but the person who held the pearl in the busy market. And another way I can kind of fractalize this in regards to the point I'm trying to make, the person who is trying to live just at the pace of nature, that person who has the pearl, it's like that's not having the pearl. The person who is living in a realm of endless dimensions. Really, we have not feared the nature of intelligence on this plane, and we have dared to wield it. That means the believers and disbelievers are both cowards. Because language is so beyond language that to just storify it so anybody's story can be true, you know? And all of history is just who wrote it. The winners, right? That's what they say. Zen Master Dogen says to follow Buddha's path, you must study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to awaken to the nature of all things. And it's literally like a vertical raindrop falling into a horizontal ocean, right? And then returning to the clouds, falling again, you know? If decency, innate decency, is abided by, if the inner child is no longer exiled, that means the person doesn't forget how life was okay when they were being a simpler creature. And just caring for the future. That means it's like asking the New Age community, it's like, what do we do after we come to the here and now? We realize we were from the beginning, the here and now, and there was nothing wrong. I'm telling you, individualism should not be seen as something impure. It should be seen just as a technology that can be misused. And human psychology, it's complex. Like for me, I'm like, how dare any other human being other than the person themselves act like they're outer, like the in. It's like there's an how do I say it? It's like when you become free from the language of the outer realms, your eyes become their own mover. And it's like energy for the first time can be consciously directed. Because in like a person sitting down, let's say the person went in a cave and sat for 3 years, 3 months and 3 days. Something to men monks do. So it's like, so what? It's like, so the person realized how their mind moves when their body doesn't. So imagine we build an advanced civilization where we teach silence and stillness techniques to be able to watch the mind, and we in some sense teach movement and noise techniques in regards to watching the body. So it's as if we're like, again, let's take the coin analogy, and it's like how we watch the body, that is the story of our life. That's where the story of our life comes, or let me say it this way. Everything is communication. Silence and stillness is when communication in one dimension lessens, so that the communication in other dimensions can be more amplified. And you can say advanced communication is when you're maxing out, when one dimension is just creating so much noise. Imagine it's like somebody throwing a house party that there's so much noise the neighbors are waking up. So it's as if the advanced communicators will wake up the neighboring dimensions probably. Can you imagine it, like aliens come from another dimension and we're like, oh my god, are you guys making contact? And they're like, no, we're just here to tell you to keep it down, It's like the human party is too loud. Really, whatever it is, choice, like tell me, what is more divine than choice? What is more divine than having a control over an elemental movement that for the longest time there was no controller to it? So we are like the emergence of a controlling, of an arbitrary controlling system of an object. Like right now we're being objects and we are subjectively being moved. That means it's like when Bodhidharma, somebody said help me, and Bodhidharma was like, what is it, this patriarchal Buddhism? And the guy's like, Bodhidharma, my mind's restless, please pacify my mind. And the Bodhidharma was like, okay, bring your mind in front of me and I'll pacify it. And so what happens is the guy can't bring his mind in front of it because the mind is not an object. So if we are saying we all have minds and our minds are moving us, but the mind isn't an object, how can we believe in ourselves if it is not even material? That means it's like a material is as if it's like what are the neurons up to? And treating the brain as an antenna, that is the last resort of secular society to be able to connect to multidimensionality but without a story. And think about it this way. Lao Tzu said a person has to let go of who they are to be who they are meant to, a species has to let go of what it is to itself now to become truly what it is meant to. You know, like that's the level of collective advancement. And this collective mindhood, just, it's as if nature is one existential activity. And so it's the contentment of the experiencer. That means it's like you're alive once, get to know your eyes. It's the privilege of being. Anyways, guys, there's way more I can say on the topic, but I think this is enough for this episode. And there's nothing to fear. That means I personally don't fear collectivity in the sense like, okay, like you know, it's all about what is the primal or the presence mover. Like right now, as I'm speaking to you, there's a mover, and I know. And when I trust that mover, everything happens. When I don't trust that mover, it's as if, what am I doing? What is the I thought doing? What is the universe doing? You know? That means it's like when a person really sees an act of evil or good, is it their brain being evil, or is the evil out there? Is their brain being good, or is the good out there? That's a huge philosophical discussion that the species needs to have. So collective mindhood, it is a privilege. It is what is gonna, so many philosophers, their names in the future are gonna be written by, because it's the next great thing left to explore. If the species becomes explorer and intelligence, there's no longer a hierarchical system to it. I will tell you, we are in behind our eyes way more advanced than what is happening in front of them. So it's just the outer realms that need to catch up. So if there's emotional stability and peace and gentleness, then the shyness of all the hidden genius potential, all the hidden geniuses out there in the world who are shy, that it's in some sense that shyness goes away. The mystery of our eyes still stands. This is enough to make anyone care for the realm again, you know. Sometimes I think like George Orwell did something nice. You know, in 1984 he painted the picture of how messed up how blind tyranny can be. How blind the world would be if we made control the ultimate value, the ultimate priority. So there needs to be something way more than control. And I thought about, what if there was the opposite? What if there was a, like, imagine like some, like I might write this story in the future, a novel dedicated to this. But imagine there came this ruthless dictator, you know, or tyrant, right? And people were like, oh no, a ruthless tyrant, you know, and the people were like, what are we going to do? But this ruthless tyrant was like, its tyranny was that it was forcing people, anybody who wasn't happy, do you know, who actually sincerely wasn't happy, imagine they were like, something intense would happen, you know, as the typical stories of tyrants go. So what would it be? It's as if the opposite of 1984. It was as if forceful freedom rather than forceful absence of freedom, you know. I'm just trying to say that the opposite is possible. Right now, I could totally fathom the opposite of our civilization. The opposite of it would be a collective mind. It would be where nobody would be speaking, the bodies wouldn't be moving, and everything would be silent. It would be as if like a human hibernation, but we're living in, let's say, either in our inner realms or the cyberspace adaptation, because sometimes I feel what the inner realms are is really how the world is feeling, like a simulation. It's as if the mind again is like a film, and the body is a film, and the soul is like the projector of these films. The great unknown, the truth of truth. So anyways, thanks for listening. And I want to let the listeners know the chat section and the comment section are here for actually the audience to challenge, so people can challenge everything I'm saying. You know, it's like what better use of this chat section, you know. That way more dimensions can be seen. So feel free to share your eyes open to this episode, and let me see, where's the link? Oh, and anybody who cares for nature, please care for my Patreon too. Kabir says a very nice quote. He says, many know that the drop merges into the ocean. Few know that the ocean merges into the drop. That means it's as if many people know the individual is going towards a collective position. Oh, how divine, you know, adorably divine. But then we look at it from how many people know that the collective is moving towards the individual. Collective is moving towards us. I am telling you, it's a symbiosis with the communication, the whole intelligent activity, which can be said to be a communication of the universal sector. Right now, I can say my biological existence is the poetry of nature. That means it's like hilarious. I'm giving a talk here, and it's as if the whole universe, I am like a fragment of it. You know, it's as if the universe is speaking me, and I am speaking. It's like the universe is communicating me, and I'm communicating the universe. And without establishing advancement, like, you know, like I'm saying, like philosophers go to every branch of you know what it is? Imagine like we make philosophy a very noble position in academic departments, and a philosopher from the philosophy department. It's like philosophers go to all the academic fields, and they're like in right, you know, your principal philosophy. That means all knowledge is literally an archive of worldviews. I'm telling you, pretty much everything we're calling knowledge is how human beings have opened their eyes to the world so far. Beyond language. We won't want freedom in life, we will be the life of freedom. Thanks for listening. Namaste.